All right. Well, hola and hello, everybody. I am truly excited to be here today to engage with you all for another amazing event here at Austin Urban Technology Movement. So, I am Michael Ward Jr. I am the president and CEO of Austin Urban Technology Movement, also known as AUTMHQ. And today we have another Horizons event with Dropbox. So I am truly excited for the amazing people who will be speaking today. They're going to introduce themselves shortly, and I'm telling you, you are truly in for a treat. We have two amazing individuals that are engaged. That's all about the community and doing great work at Dropbox with inside the tech space. One of the reasons why we do this program called Horizons is because of the problem that we see inside the tech space. Number one, there's a lack of underrepresentation inside of the tech industry. When you look at the Black and Hispanic community, they are not represented as much as they should be inside the tech space when it comes down to their representation inside the US population. But the tech industry also is not represented by the number of women that should be represented inside the tech space. So we're seeing there's so many opportunities for us to get more Blacks, more Hispanics, more women, more people inside the tech space and truly change what we think about when you talk about technology and the people that are able to participate and engage inside this space. The second reason why we do Horizons is because there's a lack of talent overall inside the tech industry. I know that I did not find out about the tech industry until I was a senior in college about to graduate when a recruiter from Oracle tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Michael, have you ever thought about a pathway in technology?" My response was, "You mean PlayStation, right? You mean cell phones?" Right? I wasn't really thinking about the tech industry as far as autonomous vehicles, electronics, applications, software, right? I wasn't really thinking about it from that mindset. And we see that today, where there's just not enough people that are interested, that have the skills, that have the experience to truly participate inside the tech industry. So Horizons is one of those programs that we have where we are truly engaging and bringing people to the tech space. However, Horizons is not the only event that we do. We also have another program called Day in a Life, where we expose individuals to different occupations inside the tech space. We do have a Day in a Life coming up next week, so stay tuned for that. But we're all about getting people excited about technology, showing them what they could do, showing them the pathway to get there, and creating opportunities for them to thrive and succeed inside that space. So today, I'm very excited because I know I'm going to learn something. I hope you learn something too. And without further ado, I do want to bring up Tenika, who is a member at Dropbox, to the team here. There we go. Tenika, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Hi.
Beautiful. Hello, hello. So, Tenika, please introduce yourself to our audiences, those that are watching live now, and also those that are watching live later.
Wonderful. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Tenika Small, and I am Director of Product Communications at Dropbox. I'm super excited to be here and just tell you guys more about my journey.
Beautiful. So then let's go ahead and dive right in, Tenika. So please tell us, what is your role? What are the different hats that you wear when you think about Dropbox in the tech space?
For sure. So one of my main jobs is I oversee product communications and analyst relations. And one of the biggest things with communications is really just helping to tell the Dropbox story to the public. So if you think about product launches, or if you see our CEO and different of our executives out speaking, that's most of the time is someone from our team working on those things or talking to analysts about Dropbox. So that's what I get to do. I get to sort of champion the products that we're building and be able to, make sure we've got an interesting story out to our various stakeholders. So that's me, my main hat. And then I wrote a couple of other things. Obviously, being a Black woman in tech is super important. So champion of the culture. And then just another hat that I wear, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and that is an autoimmune disease. So I'm a huge advocate for type 1 diabetes as well.
So since Anthony proposed this question via LinkedIn, I'm actually going to bring it up because the fact that you are a culture of champion, I think this aligns with that. So Anthony says, I find it interesting that there is a claim that there's a lack of talent in tech, but yet many people of color who apply do not get interviews. What's your response to that, Tenika?
I mean, I think it's tough. There are so many there's so many people that apply to tech roles, and I do think like breaking in can be super tough. But I do think that having a strong network is really important in some of that, because I do think sometimes like blindly like sending your resume doesn't always work. But yeah, there could be folks that aren't getting interviews, but I do think part of it has to be like having some sort of connection with your network, and that could help. But it's a good question, and it's an interesting point.
And I completely agree with you, Tenika, because we all know the saying, and if you don't, I'm gonna tell you now. It's not about what you know; it's about who you know. And a lot of times, when people are looking at resumes, whether it's a recruiter, or hiring manager, they're gravitating towards individuals that they know or what they're used to, right? So if you are a non-traditional candidate, or if you don't match the current culture, right, and they're looking to bring new people to the table, it can be difficult to get in the door. So Horizons is one of those ways where you can get plugged into recruiters, hiring managers, culture champions who can say, "Oh, Anthony just applied for Dropbox. Well, let me go ahead and see what I can do for Anthony," right? So I highly encourage you all to really get inside and get plugged in. And here goes Anthony. That's why I value meetings like these to fill in that gap. Exactly, Anthony, right? Because it can be difficult because we're used to doing something a certain way, recruiting from the same places, but yet, there's other pathways, right? There's other opportunities to get plugged in. So Anthony, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for bringing your comments to the discussion today. So Tenika, you're culture champion, you're a communication professional. How does that resonate with what we do here at Austin Urban Technology Movement to diversify the tech industry?
I love it. I think the mission really resonates with me. Just coming into tech, like obviously, I think, yes, there's not as many of us in the space. And so I think I want to make sure, and something that's really important in general is that there is representation across every corner of the company. And so when you think about like technology in general, there are so many facets that make up what technology is and the roles that are across companies. So I think we just need more voices. And so I'm just very excited about, ensuring that we see more people of color for sure be in these spaces.
Definitely. And I got to give a shout out to Eastland Lee because when her and I were discussing about, the type of speakers we're looking for, right? What's the impact that we're trying to have? She's like, "Oh, I know the perfect people," right? I'm like, "Okay, perfect. Let's make this happen," because that's what we want, right? We want to see an impact. We want people to understand that we all have a role to play. And if we play that role, well, then we can reshape the tech industry together, right? It won't just be on one person or one entity, but us collectively as a society, as techies, as employees, as employers, we can really make this change happen and truly diversify the tech space. Representation across every corner. Love it. Oh, go ahead.
It's true. No, I mean, it's really true. I think we need folks across these different spaces. It's super important. And then also, I think it reflects, for Dropbox, we have such a multifaceted like set of users and customers. And so I think we should all be reflective of those folks. It helps us design better products. And so I think it's super important that we have the right representatives in the room. So
so I'm gonna throw a curveball at you because you just said something that made me think about this. Like, how important is that in your line of work from a communication standpoint, right? Like, if you can't relate to your customers or to your clients or to your different users, how do you build that community and that connection with them?
That's right. I feel like you can't. You have to like be super in touch with your customers. I mean, being customer centric is just super important, I think, for any company. And if you're not in touch with your customers, then you're not going to be able to engage them in the right ways. They're not going to buy your products. They're not going to engage with your brand. And so I think it's critical to the success of companies to make sure that they're engaged with their customers. And I think you need the right voices to be able to do that and understand who your customer is and to know your customer. Again, that just means you need to have the folks that reflect your customer base across the teams.
For sure. So let's talk about your career and your background. Because everybody's journey is different, right?
Yeah.
And we really want people to understand that here goes a pathway. It's not the only way, but here's definitely a pathway to get inside this space. So Tenika, please walk us through your career journey.
Definitely. So I definitely did not think about technology as being like a true like pathway for me for a while. I mean, but it's interesting the way I think about it is I went to San Diego State University. My bachelor's is in communications, and obviously I'm still in comms, so it's sometimes rare to major in something and then also go into it. But originally I started in more like entertainment, fashion, PR. That was sort of my first job out of college. And I really wanted to just, again, make sure communications was super important to me. And so I worked on a number of brands and different things. And that sort of brought me to an agency that I was at before I joined Dropbox, where I worked across like a lot of more consumer brands. So think about Jordan brand and electronic arts. And there's a bunch of companies that it was really interesting that technology was always at the intersection of all of that work that I was doing. Whether it was launching, a hub for Jordans where you could learn about like the history of their Jordan, or if it was like partnering with a company like Pinterest to create visual boards, or partnering with Snapchat to do an AR version of Michael Jordan's 1988 dunk. Like there was just so many ways that was kind of connecting. And so that was one of the places that sort of got me interested. But even before that, as a kid, I actually worked at the library when I was 14 as a what they called web stars, which essentially were like junior like web techs, where you would basically help teach people how to like use the internet. I'm that age where like I helped people like sign up for email accounts and like just understand what the internet was and how programs worked. So that's a little bit of my foray into tech. And then I found my way to Dropbox in 2019, based on somebody I actually knew who I worked with years ago at the agency I was at previously. She was at Dropbox and was like, "Hey, I really think you would like it here." And so we started having conversations, and that's how I brought myself or got myself to Dropbox.
So you mentioned the job at 14 years old.
Yep.
That work that you did at 14 is a lot of the work that we do now, and I don't know how many years ago that was. I'm not gonna put you on the spot for that, but I'm in a lot of rooms where we're talking about what we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and we're still doing it today in order to bridge that, either that technology divide, that digital divide, whichever divide inside the tech space when we want to talk about the time. It says, we've been doing this for a while, right? And we need people like Tenika, who's sharing her experience, her background, so that we don't always have to do that, right? So we can kind of get jumpstart and get to a different place where people are now talking about, oh, how can I upscale, not necessarily rescale, but how can I get better at what I'm doing, right? How can I move up in my space in what I'm doing? One question for you, Tenika. You mentioned the library, but did you have any internships or any other volunteer roles leading up to that?
So library was like first job. I was 14 years old.
Okay.
And then internships, I didn't intern until I was in college, just because I worked mostly through high school, and then in college, I did intern at it actually was a PR firm. So interned then, and then once I graduated, I had a little bit of a space in between just because of the economy, things were kind of happening, but ended up doing some freelancing and like project work in between like graduating college and my very first job.
And what I'm hearing is a constant buildup, right? It's building up and learning more and more experiences, which now fast forward and look at the work you do now in Dropbox, right? Leveraging all that previous experience to make you excel in your role now.
100%. It all connects, I think. I mean, I know we'll talk more later, but I do think like there's so many ways to get experience. So don't discount the current experience you're getting as not being relevant, because it's all relevant. It all matters.
Speaking like a true communication professional. I love it. So what do you like about your current role in tech? And I love the smile. I love the energy. So tell me, what is it that you love about what is it that you do in tech?
Okay. Well, one of the things is I have a really amazing team that I work with. Our communications team spans not just comms, but also we have an editorial team. We have social media, and I just love the folks that I get to work with on a daily basis. They're just incredibly talented and smart and just very collaborative. And that's something I love about Dropbox in general. I think what I learned early on about myself is that I'm highly creative, but I'm also very analytical at the same time. And I think this role really merges that. I get to come up with creative ways to launch our products, but I also get to solve tough issues and sort of think about like, how do we launch something, or how does this work, or will this make sense? And I think that's something that is just amazing. And then the other piece is just learning. Every day there's something that I'm learning. And that's something I think you need in your job, is to always feel like you're learning something new, and that you're always stretching yourself. If you are not a little bit uncomfortable and scared in your role, then you're probably doing something that might be too easy for you. So it's okay to feel a little bit nervous or stretched, or feel like you don't know something. That's actually the beauty of learning. So.
For sure. And I speak to a lot of employers that say, we want our employees to always bring value and have that value always changing and improving because of the constant learning and education to get better and better at your craft, or even learning new skills to bring to the table. So what I'm hearing is that Dropbox is a great team, right? So that's one. And then secondly, look for roles that allow you to combine your passions, right? Combine the things that you're good at so that you can excel inside that role. Whether it's, it could be something around software engineering, communications, it could be cybersecurity, whatever those are. Look for jobs that allow you to combine the things that you love to do and that you're passionate about. I love it.
Definitely.
So tell me, what advice would you give working as a communications professional? Someone who's looking to get in, or someone who may already be inside this space looking just to move up with inside their company?
Yeah. So one big thing is just your writing skills. You gotta continue to practice those and just keep writing, keep working at that. I think being a good writer is a really important part of the job. So that's one sort of piece of advice, is just keep writing and keep working on that. And then one other thing is, there's always a question that I ask, and I think a lot of people ask this, but it's like, really get good at uncovering like why you're doing something. If someone is coming to you and we want to launch something, or we're sort of thinking about, just like an initiative or something that we want to do, just making sure we're really rooted in like understanding why we're doing this, who is it for, does everything make sense, is it clear? And I think the more you ask those questions throughout your career, I think the better you get as a comms practitioner. We often get asked advice of, what do you think about this? And so really understanding those things, I think, are really important. And then, just learning, like never stop learning. And it's okay, I think, to get experience in maybe some unconventional ways that continue to help you to grow. And just generally just being kind to people and setting up meetings. I think it's like really important to like just chat with people, get to know them, get to understand their stories. Because I think it helps you for sure, like just be better at your work and your job.
For sure. Is there any place that you would recommend for people to go and get assistance with honing their writing skills based on your experience?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, one thing I would say for sure is like, make sure you read a lot, because I think being a good reader makes you a better writer. So I like just read a lot of like news articles. I have like a bunch of random books on my shelf, and like I think like those things are good. So whether it's fiction or nonfiction, like just be reading constantly. I don't know about classes, but I will say like start just drafting like journal entries, or like ask to like write a quick, note. I think early on for me, like before I even really was like during my freelance days, I used to just like write press releases and write random things just to like get the practice, or so I would say those are other things, but I'll have to think a little bit more if there's any other like resources out there that I'm aware of.
For sure. No, we'll definitely bring you back for the Q&A section. But before we let you go and wrap up here, what I'm hearing is that if you do want to get inside this space as a communications professional, hone your writing skills. And I completely agree to that for any position. That you definitely need to know how to write, know how to digest information, then apply it. But then secondly, get good at uncovering that why, right? Getting deep into why you're doing what you're doing, so you can know how to leverage your time, right? Know where you should be spending your time for the things that are most important, right? Whether it's urgent, whether it's a high priority for you. Let's get down into that why. So Tenika, thank you so much for your spill and sharing information about your journey. We're definitely going to bring you back for the Q&A section, but I'm going to go ahead and bring up Abraham now to this stage.
Awesome. Thank you.
So Abraham, can you please introduce yourself to our lovely audience that's here and that will be watching later on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Abraham Velazquez. I'm a software engineering manager at Dropbox. I've been here for close to 7 years. I started out as an engineer in the company. I've sort of moved through the different leadership and management chains now. So yeah, based out of the Bay Area as well.
Okay, so do you consider yourself like tenured at Dropbox now, or like are you still consider yourself new? Like, how do you feel just given yourself at Dropbox?
Yeah, it's surprising how tenured I do feel. I think
Okay.
unsurprisingly, sort of getting promotions and sort of rising kind of through the different leadership positions that I've had just gives you a lot more credibility, and I think it's really helped me not. Um, you sort of have a lot of imposter syndrome early on, especially as you're going through your career of like, am I in the right room? Do I have the right skills? And I've been very fortunate enough to sort of see those things really rewarded, and I want to make sure that I do the same for other folks on our team.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So then you mentioned the different promotions and the work you've done at Dropbox. So then let's dive deep into that. I know what role or other hats do you wear with inside this space?
Yeah, so as I was saying earlier, I initially started as a software engineer working on a web application. I then became a tech lead and a manager, and now I manage managers. So we specifically lead 3 engineering teams that focus on Dropbox for Teams. So if a company or something like that wants to sign up for Dropbox and get everybody on the team, we work on the different features and aspects of that product.
Okay.
Some of the other things that I sort of added in here is that I actually work with an organization similar to AUTMHQ that's actually based out of the San Francisco area that helps underrepresented folks into tech. I'm on the board. I used to teach classes there, and there's similar programs. There's a lot of other organizations and kind of companies throughout the U.S. that are really trying to get to this mission. But one of the best ways that I've found to actually be able to have an impact is to have the right programs and systems inside of Dropbox to actually support once folks do get in the door. How do we actually support sponsoring them, supporting their work, making sure that they're being able to advocate for themselves and being recognized as well. So that's why I'm also involved with a lot of different programs like our sponsorship one and also our Latinx ERG.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So welcome the introduction, right? And I'm all about collaboration. The more the merrier. So definitely want to put a plug for us to connect with them. And I love to hear the different ways you are engaged inside this space, because like I was telling Tenika earlier, we all have a role to play, right? Whatever that role is, play that role to help people get engaged, for you to give back, for you to become more of an expert and really get connected to what's happening inside this space. So you touched on this a little bit in your responses, but tell me, how does the work that we do here at AUTMHQ, how do our mission resonate, with you, with your work, with your overall beliefs?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I'll tell you is that I was born in Mexico City, and I came to the States as an immigrant very early age. I was undocumented for a bit part of my life, but I was fortunate enough to be able to, eventually gain residency and citizenship. And I think really what that spoke to me is that you sort of end up in a place in where, as I was going through high school, I was like, wait, am I going to have to go back to Mexico and sort of start there? I was very interested in technology very early on in high school. And I really didn't know what was sort of next for me. Resources being limited, not being able to have an Ivy League school sort of at your access, let alone have, your parents have that kind of education or background. It's just not something that was, really in my family. So it's incredibly important to make sure that diverse folks from all different walks of life are able to get the opportunities and do what they love to do, regardless of their background.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I love hearing your story, because every story is different, and every story there's always something to learn, something to take away from that. So thank you so much for that. I'm looking forward to diving into more. So for those that are watching, please remember to submit your questions in the comment section, and we'll make sure to bring them up when we do have our Q&A section, or even if throughout the presentation, depending on what makes the most sense. So then as we look at your overall career and your background, Abraham, please walk us through the beginning and to how you got to where you are now at Dropbox.
Yeah, funnily enough, I don't have a computer science degree. I remember first looking into it when I was in school and barely learning how to code and things like that.
Wait a minute, what? You don't have a software degree and you're a software engineer? What?
Yeah, exactly. I really actually wanted to focus much more on design. I think in a different career path and branch of my life, I probably would have ended up as a product designer doing similar
Okay.
things. But I think the reason that I ended up succeeding in this particular career is because I loved making beautiful, delightful products that people enjoy using, whether it was like websites or applications, helping other organizations really tell their mission and achieve particular goals is something that really resonated with me. So I actually learned how to code kind of in high school and helping nonprofits sort of do, build out websites. And I just wanted to dive deeper and deeper further into it. And then my first job specifically is when I was getting out of school, I had a portfolio of websites that I designed. That was a brand new thing back then, and people were quite impressed by that. But they were even more impressed about the fact that I wrote a lot of the code themselves. So they actually wanted to, had me interview for a developer position, and that's how I started working in the tech industry proper.
That is interesting. I love the different pathway because some individuals believe that, oh, the only way for me to get into a tech or an occupation is to go to school for that and earn a 4-year degree. And it's like, not necessarily, right? That's definitely one pathway. But there's other ways for you to get inside this tech space as well. And it can be the traditional way, or it just can be gaining experience, right? And the more experience you have, now you know the competencies, you know the skills, you know what to do, what not to do. And then that can get you in the door. So it's interesting to hear your background and how you got started and how, you were doing one thing and then someone saw something in you, right? Hey, have you thought about this? Let's get you in this direction. So I'm very happy to see how things came together for you now. So then, what is it that you like about your current role inside the tech space? You talked about creativity and designing things and helping people, but talk about some more about the things that you like about this space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think where those two things sort of start marrying together for me is when you're able to really talk to an individual and understand what are their skills, what are their strengths, what are the things that they do best and only they can do because of their background and experience, and how do you actually guide them towards the right career path. Those are really the most exciting parts of the conversations of the day. I get to have one-on-one conversations with other engineers throughout the company, folks that are interested in getting into the tech space as a whole, and really just trying to understand, like, is software development the best path for you? Do you enjoy coding? Maybe you should. What other product roles or design roles there are? There's many different ways to sort of contribute to building something fantastic, like a software platform, and really just helping folks understand that and making sure that they have confidence in their skills.
So what I'm hearing is, you have mentoring, you have empowering people, and you have building impactful solutions. So if y'all are looking to be a software developer, right? Think about mentorship, because I truly support mentorship. You can learn anything from anyone, right? So really think about the people you have around you that gives you a good foundation or a good support to get whatever question you have about your career path answered. And then think about empowering people, right? I love you say here, empowering people to find solutions. I mean, that's what we do here at Austin Urban Technology Movement, right? We work with employers to find solutions around their recruiting, workforce development, and employee engagement needs. I mean, every time we're talking to an individual, we're trying to empower them to be the best techie they can be. So I love the overlap between your role as a software developer, and my role as a leader of a company, right? And our role from the people that we have when we're engaging with our direct clients or even with our partners. So thank you for what you do as well, because I see how it engages your life, right? And allows you, or either not necessarily allows you, but it kind of directs, what you do, right? Because you're coming from a place of passion and things you like to do. Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give someone who's an engineering manager that may already be inside this space, right? Or looking to transition into this space for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. Just know that anyone can be in this industry. Plenty of people will go to different boot camps, will learn to code on their own, just watching YouTube videos or live streams, anything and whatever mechanism in which you learn, really embrace that. In terms of how is it that you can actually gain those skills and those different abilities. Like I was saying earlier, one of the things that I really enjoyed doing throughout college was actually volunteering with nonprofits and saying, hey, you need a website, I don't know how to build it, but I'm going to figure it out, right? I'm going to work with you. We're going to come up with different solutions together. And at the end of the day, that really pushes you to have a very service, customer oriented mindset that is incredibly important. And I think, honestly, one of the reasons that my career and like my skills have really shined in Dropbox as a whole is because we really have to keep the customer's experience first and foremost. It's the reason I consider myself like a product engineer as opposed to like a platform engineer where like you're really dealing with the machines and the systems at a very low level. It's because ultimately what I care about is how people interact with something, how it helps them accomplish their day-to-day tasks, and really keeping those people and those different situations top of mind is really important to building something that's going to solve their problems.
Yeah, I love Eli's comment here that says, his story was very similar to yours, but for him, it wasn't, starting with coding, or ending with coding. It was like graphic design, right? That was the pathway for him. And this is why we do Horizon, so people can see the connectivity, or the connection between your story and their own story, all right? So that more and more people can decide to get into tech, or decide to do things differently because they are already a part of tech. So thank you so much for the advice. What I'm hearing from you is there's different pathways to get inside the tech space, for any position, right? There are so many different pathways to do that. Yes, you could get a 4-year institution. You could some 4-year degrees. You could get 2-year degrees. There's internships. There's apprenticeships. There's boot camps, right? Now there's a big push for online badges and certifications and certificates. So truly look at the best way that works for those who are looking to get inside the tech space, or those that are looking to learn new skills. And please reach out to us, right? Austin Urban Technology Movement is what we do. Please reach out to us and help us guide you on this journey. But then secondly, keep users and clients tops in mind. And I see this once again being applicable to anyone inside this tech space, is that you're looking to build solutions for any type of problem, whether it's a product you're looking to build, whether you're looking to create an initiative, whether you're starting a coalition, whatever the case may be. It's about keeping the people in mind, right? Keeping the end user in mind, those that are going to benefit from this. So Abraham, I truly appreciate you coming and sharing your advice with us and really guiding us through your journey. And now I'm going to bring Tenika back up so that we can get some questions going, because I know I got some questions. So while we have questions coming in, so please submit your questions if you haven't done so now. But one question that I have, and if I put you on the spot, I do apologize. But the question is, what has been the biggest challenge for you all inside this space? It could be your biggest career challenge. It could be your biggest, learning curve from a skill set challenge. So please share with me what has been the biggest challenge. And Abraham, I'm gonna start with you, and then we'll go to Tenika.
I think something that I wish I would have learned or paid probably a bit much more attention in science classes, in middle school and high school. It's just, I remember being so engaged in those classes around chemistry and physics and things like that. But what I sort of forgot as I went into design is that in engineering and in software, we really think about things as like forming a hypothesis, actually having a very sound scientific method to everything that you're doing. What is it that you're testing? What is it that you're building? How are you gathering your data? We're very fortunate at Dropbox to have a user base of 700 million people, right? You can actually do quite a lot of experimentation and sort of test out those theories and hypotheses that you have, and being incredibly detail-oriented and diligent to prove that what you're building is solving the right problem. Is something that I think I didn't know I could do. And as I've grown in my career, I've really just embraced it. And now that's really how I go through my day-to-day, not just in building software, right? It's like, can I be a little bit more efficient in getting to this path to the train or this other way? Like, what is actually better? So just observing, learning, gathering data, and making informed decisions is something that I feel I've grown into, and I really enjoy now.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you on that, Abraham. Like, I'm even thinking about, my own education journey and where I was in classes and I didn't really see the value in those classes. But if I did saw the value in them, then I would have done a much better job in those classes. And this is across the board from K all the way up to college, right? because there are times when you just don't see the connection between the now and the then, right? And you need someone to come and show you what those connections are in order to really to make that happen. So I see a question come on, so I'm gonna jump to this question. I'm gonna come back to you, Tenika. But from Elias, he says, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? What helps you feel more like you belong in your role? So go ahead.
Yeah, there's two parts to that. One is that I'm often in a room or a Slack channel, and someone very senior, very experienced will raise their hand and say, hey, I've got a stupid question or dumb question. And I always make it a point to give them feedback privately in a separate conversation. It's like, you know what? There are no such things as stupid questions. We can call them foundational questions. Let's use another term to really encourage asking questions, right? Because just because you might think something is a little bit basic, or maybe you should have known it, doesn't mean that everyone else in the room, and more often than not, other people have the exact same question. They just don't have the courage to necessarily ask. So that's one way in terms of like making sure that those in the room feel included, and being very mindful of that language. And then on the flip side, if you're in the room and you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable, ask those questions, right? Know that there are people in the same situation that need to learn, that have different backgrounds and experiences as you do, but also need that foundation as well. So the way to really think about it is that your experience gives you a very unique lens and perspective. And in many ways, what something might feel so obvious to you, or like, hey, why haven't, have we thought about this? Maybe that I'm sure you've thought about it, but it's a basic question, things like that. More often than not, it's your unique perspective that's causing that little spark in your mind. And people should be well aware of that gap as well.
So Tenika, I'm gonna ask you the same question, but really focus on the end piece. Is that what helps you feel like you belong in your role, Tenika?
Yeah, great question. I experience imposter syndrome all the time, but one thing that helps me just feel like I belong is just remembering like that I deserve to be here. And that seems like really simple, but it's true that like I think part of what imposter syndrome comes from is like you don't feel qualified, or you don't feel like you have the skills, and that somehow your voice doesn't matter, but it does. So part of it is also reminding myself that. I have some quotes on my little board here that kind of remember or think about, or just like remembering your own journey. It's important to know that like you are in this room because your opinion does matter, that you've gotten to this point because of the work that you've done. And so just kind of step into that. And it's okay to, I think, also be like nervous about things, because you don't know everything. And to Abraham's point, like asking questions is a good thing, and not knowing all the answers is great. That's actually like a big part of our job, is learning and uncovering things and discovering it, and not being afraid to be like, I don't have the answers here, but my voice still does matter in this collective group. And it's not always individual, right? Like sometimes it's not going to be just your voice. It's everyone's voice. So
for sure. Do you have one of those quotes that you could share with us, Tenika?
Yes. One of my quotes is, the grass is green where you water it. So that just, for me, it's all about like, and then one is like around being uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is a good thing. And then you're a boss, even if you don't feel like it. Like you just kind of have to sometimes tell yourself, like really just say it. But I think like just remembering that like your practice makes a career. Like you have to keep working at it. It's okay that like, it's going to take you time and stuff, but you are right where you need to be.
I really like that quote about grass is green where you water. I'm keeping that one to my heart. So our next question is from Mia White. She says, what will be the best piece of advice to give those that may be introverted to help with networking?
Ooh, it's a good one. Here, I'll start. I am an introvert, so I can relate to this.
I could not tell, Tenika, at all. So you're doing a great job.
People often think that being introverted just means you're like very reserved. I'm definitely quiet in rooms. I like to think a lot, but part of my like being introverted is that like I'm just a little shy, and it takes me a minute to like actually break through, and then I'm not just gonna like reach out to people. So I think one advice for networking is pick a few people. I don't think you need to like have a vast network of people, but like cultivate a relationship with one or two people and get really intentional about what you want from them and what you both can like potentially benefit. Because I think it takes a lot both to like mentor and network, that like it's two-way street. So I would just say, pick a handful of people that you want to be intentional about and maybe start there.
For sure. And I'll add to that. And Abraham, I'll give it to you if you want to add anything to that. So I'm going to go back to what you said earlier, Tenika, about the why, right? Go back to why are you trying to network to begin with, right? Who's this person? Who's this contact? What are you trying to get out of this so that when you do engage with that person, it can be mutually beneficial, because it is a two-way street, any type of relationship. Abraham, did you want to add anything to that before we go on to the next question?
Yeah, I think one thing that's super important is to gravitate towards people that are just doing amazing work, regardless of their field, regardless of what they do for a living. It's just, it's something that I really enjoy doing, is recognizing and celebrating those people. And just something as simple as like, hey, I really appreciated that conversation. I really appreciated that post on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatnot. Something like that just goes a long way. And that's a really great way to break the ice.
Yeah. Definitely agree. So the next question that we had is, we're going to come back up in 5, 4, 3, 2. We had the question. I don't see it here. So then we're going to go back to the question I had for you last time, Tenika. Oh, there it goes. Perfect. So do you recommend applying to positions during your certification process or waiting until after? So I'm going to jump first on this one, because this one is right near to my heart. So there's a saying that says, you miss every shot you do not take. So my recommendation is to apply as soon as possible, because even if you are not a fit for that at that time, there may be another opportunity that they're thinking about that may be applicable to you. And there's a study that shows that predominantly men will go outside of their comfort zone to go apply for a role, but then women will stay shy away from that. So to overcome those trends, if you see a job, apply for it, have a conversation, build that relationship, right? Don't just look at it as you applying for that job, but more so you're trying to build a relationship. And one way you're doing that is applying for that role or any other role that may come up. So I would definitely say to apply for that. But Tenika or Abraham, did y'all have any other comments on that?
Yeah, how can I say this? A certification isn't necessarily going to guarantee that you're going to get the job. I think at the end of the day, you've got to really keep in mind that people are like hiring managers and folks, they want to be confident that the person that they're hiring is going to do 100% of that job. They're just going to be successful. So the ways you really want to think about it is, how can I take my experience and make sure that it's well-rounded, and how do I minimize or show that like there's very little risk to them taking me on, right? How do you show that you're actively learning and you're engaging in those kinds of things, and you're trying to get better at your craft as a whole? And I think people know that, hey, this person might not have that experience just yet, but this is somebody that I know can learn on the job.
Definitely agree with that. I think we have some more questions coming in. Beautiful. So this one's from Sweet Van Loan that says, how do you reconcile training/learning and time management when it comes to everyday life? So Tenika, we'll start with you on this question. How do you juggle all of that when you're engaging with life on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, I mean, the balancing is a little bit tough. I think you almost have to create it versus like you have to create it versus like finding it. And so for me, like learning is part of my job, right? So like, but it may not be specific to like training is a little bit different, but like I think learning is part of like the role that I have. So if I get a question, it's a hard question, I got to uncover it. I got to like, actually, that's part of my work, right? But then I think you just have to prioritize the things that you know are going to like take certain amounts of time and just kind of like map it out and help you find that balance. Because yes, part of my day is going to be filled with meetings, so I may not be able to get to certain things, but I think prioritization is really important. and then kind of carving out the space that you need, which looks different for everybody. But like figuring out what works for you. Like I was mentioning, I have type 1 diabetes. So that requires insulin injections and a bunch of stuff. I got to take space to do what I need to do. And so just like that means I have to block off certain parts of my day to do certain things. So I think just knowing that, like, it's okay that you need some flexibility in your schedule at times, or being mindful of that. And yeah.
Yeah. So definitely use a calendar and block time off like that. That's the biggest recommendation that I'll say. So the next question we have is, any tips on prepping for networking events where you know no one? So we touched on this a little bit, but Abraham, did you want to add anything else to how do you do that prep work beforehand when you know that you're going to a room where you know nobody and nobody knows you?
Wow, that's a good one. I love the badges. So make sure you write your name very clearly and legibly, just so that people can remember you. I know business cards aren't a thing anymore. That was actually one of my favorite things to have when I was in college, of like my little business cards printed with my name and contact information. So making sure you've got your LinkedIn QR code ready to go is something that's really important. So just don't hesitate to, again, like start by either compliments if you're sort of talking to someone that just presented, being just very curious in general. Asking questions is also really important, especially for folks that you don't know. What do you do? What are some of the challenges that you're going through? Things like that can really spark a conversation. And then really just being prepared for when that opportunity does happen. It's like, someone will often say, like, oh, you're learning how to code. My startup or my company is actually going to have some roles open. So let's make sure we connect and have that resume ready to go.
For sure. Definitely do research beforehand if you can, right? If you have that opportunity, definitely look it up, see the connections between people, and then dive in from there. I definitely echo that, Abraham. Yeah, and there goes an individual, someone saying, absolutely, right? So when you think about networking, when you're thinking about plugging or blocking time off inside your day, these are things that ultimately is going to come down to what you want to do and how you go about doing those things. Because all of these are great recommendations, great advice for you to be successful inside that space. So I think those are the last questions that we have. So then, Tenika, I'm going to go back to the question we started with was what has been the biggest challenge for you inside your space?
Yeah, I'm going to go with more of a personal challenge, which is I think going from being an individual contributor to manager, and as you move, along in your career, it's like helping people along the way. And just like, I think it's always a challenge of like, all right, how do you continue to help people grow, and how do you still grow? And that I think has been one of the bigger challenges, just because it's like newer, where you're like stretching yourself and you're continuing to like bring up your teams, and also like continuing to hone your own skills. So I would just say like that manager stretch is always somewhat of was a challenge, I think, for me. But all manageable and all workable. You just got it. Yeah, it's one of those things that just is newer. So
for sure, I'll say two for me. The one has been communication, right? Just making sure that we're all on the same page. That could be from partners to teams to the people you're serving, right? You want to make sure that what we are committing to is actually what everyone wants to commit to, right? And this has been outlined, has been identified, and we can move forward. We got someone else pulling up here. Another question just came in. So I mean, y'all said something that was perfect. So thank y'all for that. So Cindy says, when I get asked why I'm interested in tech, I feel like I never have an answer, just because tech is so vast, and I feel like I don't know a general answer. What do you recommend, Abraham and Tenika, to Cindy Gonzalez?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend focusing and trying to see what really moves you and sort of inspires you about technology. Is it, a lot of people just love watching TikTok and YouTube videos or Twitch streams. What is it that really keeps you engaged? And see if you can sort of understand how it works and why it works in a particular way. If you're interested in mentoring and helping people, coaching people, maybe some kind of leadership role is down your path as well. So really focusing on what moves you is really in there. Because you're right. Tech is incredibly broad. It's just taking over more and more industries as a whole. So it's really important to focus on what moves you specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you like to add anything to that, Tenika?
I agree. I'm just going to +1 that. It's okay to not have a general answer, and figuring out what is specific to you.
For sure. Cindy, I'll respond. Why would I not love technology, right? Just go with it and say technology is amazing. It does everything, right? So feel free to laugh about it, right? It's okay to not have, quote unquote, the perfect answer, right? There's no such thing as a perfect answer, but have your answer, right? Whatever that is for you, Cindy. But thank you so much for that question. That was truly a great question. So thank y'all once again, Abraham and Tenika. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope y'all did as well. And I know from the comments and from the engagement, people online definitely loved it. So Abraham, Tenika, thank y'all so much. And this concludes the presentation while I segue. So Abraham, Tenika, do you please give your farewells and we'll transition.
Well, just thank everyone. Thank you for joining. And this has been a really great conversation.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please don't hesitate to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just reach out if I can help. I can point you in the right direction as you all are navigating into your career paths, and we have internships and apprenticeships opening up. I'm happy to share that information out.
Beautiful. So y'all heard that? Please reach out to Abraham. Please reach out to Tenika. Please reach out to us and let us get you connected. This is why we do what we do. These programs, these events, is for the community. It's for you all. Whether you're new looking to get into tech or you've been around for tech long as Abraham, as long as Tenika, right? You have a role to play. You can get plugged in. So please go to our website if you have it and look us up. We are www.autmhq.org. You can Google AUTMHQ and we will come up. Shout out to our VP of Marcom. She does a great job on SEOs. So y'all can find us very easily. And we're also on social media. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, also TikTok. So check us out there as well. And I'm looking forward to next week because next week, November 10th, we're having another event. We're having our Day in a Life event with BigCommerce. So I'm excited for that. And I hope y'all are too as well, because we're really going to have a lot of fun and excitement. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. Please reach out if you have any questions and we'll be in touch soon. Bye, everyone.